Hello viewers and welcome to my channel. My name is Robert, and in this video we will move forward with Java programming, and we will start to discuss about repetitions and iterations in Java. And there are three types of this kind of repetitions, and they are called loops. It's for loop, while loop and do while loop. But in this video I will be focusing on one of them, and that is the for loop in Java. Now I hope you find these videos helpful, and if you like them, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, give a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and click the bell button to get more notifications when I'm posting new videos. So let's get started. I will go back a little to the previous video where we had the quiz at the end with switch statements, and it was about the program that asks the user to enter values within the range 1 to 10, and the program should then display different colors as a message when the user entered the values. So it was between 1 and 4 should be displayed green, between 5 and 7 should be a blue, and between 8 and 10 we should get the message yellow. Now I will show you my block of code here, as I said in the last video. So I started with declaring the variable num1, call the scanner class, print a message to ask the user to enter value between 1 and 10, write the code for input for the user to use the scanner class, and started to use the switch statement for the variable num1. So remember, we can use the switch statement for one and only one value at a time, or one variable at a time. Now let's start with the first line where the cases is between 1 and 4. We display the message green. Between 5 and 7 we have the message blue, and between 8 and 10 we have the message yellow. So let's run the code to see how it works. It's asking to enter a value. I will give a value of 6 and I get the display message blue. And let's see if we try to run the program again, and we will enter another value out of the range, and will be 13, and we get displayed the message value entered is not in the range. So the default function now has been executed, and because the value was out of the range, we received the message displayed on the output. Okay, now let's move on and let's focus on our main topic in this video, which is the iterations, the repetitions in Java. And like we said before, there are three types of loops. It's the for loops, while loops, and do while loops. Now the for loops are the type of loops that have a fixed number of repetitions, and a very good way to express this is with an example. So I have here this exercise. Is very simple, where I want to print like a square of stars. So I'm going to print all these stars to made up a square. When I run the program, obviously in the output you can see here I have the square of stars. Now what I want to do with the for loop to make use of it, I want to write down only one block of code, only one instruction, and this is instruction to be repeated 4 times so I can get the same output. So this is a fixed repetition. This is the meaning of the fixed repetition, and this is where the for loop is getting in handy. Now another example, let's say this robot where it's spinning. So this example is an animation, and we do not know how many times it can repeat. So it can be 1 time, 5 times, 10 times. So this is a non-fixed repetition. In this case is the while and do while loops are used, but we will discuss about this in the next video. Now let's start with the syntax of the for loop. So when we want to use the for loop, we start by writing the word for, followed by round brackets, and in between these round brackets we will have like 3 instructions here, and these instructions will be separated by two pairs of semicolons. So these instructions, we use them to make the repetitions, to count how many repetitions we want. And then we mark the beginning and the end of that loop with a pair of curly brackets, and inside these curly brackets we write our code, the instructions that we want to be repeated. These instructions can be any type of instruction, can be a printed message, even an if statement, or declaring variables, anything that is accepted in Java. Now inside that for loop around brackets, those three instructions that we give, they have the following functions. The first instruction is where to start counting, so which point to start counting. It goes to the second instruction, the test instructions, to see if the for loop is true or false. And now in the case when it's false, it's gonna end the for loop, but in the case where it's true, then the counter needs to change. So it goes to the third instruction, to the change instruction. It changed the counting number and goes back to the test, and then it repeats again the test to see if it's true or false. If it's true, it changes the counter again. If it's false, it's gonna end the for loop, and it keep goes of how many times we will input there the test counter. So it depends on the test counter. Okay, so let's put this in practice, and let's go to our exercise here where we had 4 lines of code to print these stars. And what do we want to do is to use the for loop so we can print the stars with just one line of instruction. So I'm going to delete these lines here now, and I'm going to start writing the for loop. Inside the round brackets, we're going to put the instructions, okay? And we will start the for loop with curly brackets. Now, the instructions, as we know, is first where to start the counter. The counter, you choose the name for the counter, just like in variables, but you need to declare the type of it. So you can either declare it inside the for loop or into the main block of code, wherever do you prefer. I will do it inside the for loop, so I'll declare it as an integer because it's counting just whole numbers, so it doesn't count with decimal points in this example. And I'll name it I, and it will start counting from 1, okay, from the first line. Now the test, the I, must be less or equal to 4 because I want to print it 4 times. What do I want to print? I want to print the message here, the system.outPrint line, the stars, okay? So I want these instructions to be executed 4 times. And what do I need to change? So first it starts from 1. It's going to the test to see if his 1 is less than 4. It is. So it's true, it's going to print the first line. Then it goes to changing the counter. So I'll give it a value of I plus 1. So I'll add one more line to be printed. It goes back again to check if it's adding 1 to the I, is becoming 2. Is it less or equal to 4? It is. So it's going to print a second time the line and goes again to the changing the counter. Starts again, check, 2 plus 1 is 3, less than 4, yes. Prints again the message, add one more, is going to be 4, is less or equal to 4, which is true. It prints the 4th time the line, and then add one more when it becomes I becomes 5 here, and the test is false, so the for loop will stop. So this is how it works. So as you can see, now I'm running the program, and I will get the same output here as I did before. Now another example here, we have the exercise, and when we are using the for loops, we can make use of the actual counter inside the loop. So sometimes you'll find it useful in the next exercises. So instead of printing those stars, I can print the actual counter, but just make sure you don't change anything to the counter. So you don't need to put anything next to it. You need to write it down the same way it has been declared. And let's see if I'm doing this. Let's see the output of the program. So it's gonna count up till 4. So we'll start from 1 to 4 and printing on the display here. Now bear in mind, if you declare the counter inside the for loop, the rest of the block of code is not gonna see the I, the counter I, the variable I is not gonna be seen in here. So if I want to print the I outside in here, outside the for loop, you will get an error, because you can see that an error is displayed here because the I, the variable I, the program cannot see it into the main block of code. So as I said before in the previous videos, the way Java works is in sequence, so it takes line by line and reading through. And now if you have a variable, you need to declare it into the main block of code if you want to be seen everywhere in the block of code. If you only use it inside the for loop, it's going to be seen only inside the for loop here. So it's not going to be seen outside. As you can see in here already, is giving the error. Now you might wonder that what if we change in here, for example, in the test, and we change the number, let's say to 10, and what if I change the counter here to be checked, for example, I plus 2. So you can add 2 to the value of I and make the test again. So you change the counter. So in this case, if I run the code, you will see it's only be printed from 1 to 10 in 2 by 2, the numbers here on the output. So the way counter work, it goes back to the initial value and adds 2 to it. So here is where the instruction we give, it matters a lot for the counter. Now, as we use in the main block of code mathematical calculations, the same way we can use them inside the for loops. So for instance, I can put here I times I and print out the results, and we can get then the I times I every time the counter goes through the for loop. So for the first instance is 1, so it's 1 times 1 is 1, the result. In the second, because we added I plus 2, is gonna be, this is gonna take the value of 3, so it's 3 times 3 is 9. Then skips, we added 2 to the value is 5. 5 times 5 is 25. Again goes to add 2 more to the value is 7. And again 2 more to the value is 9. 9 times 9, 81. And when it adds 2 more to the value, so from 9 goes to 11, it stops because the test here says is less or equal to 10. So it doesn't run anymore. It just print up until the value of 9 is in this example. Now, as I was saying previously, inside the for loops we can use any instructions we want. We can even use the if statements, and we're going to do an example here now to see how the if statements works. So I will just replace the instruction inside the for loop, and I'm going to make use of the if statement. So I'll just put an if statement where I'll give an I less than 7. So I'll put the condition that when I is less than 7 to do an instruction, and I'm going to print out the same message, the value of I. So when I run the code now, I'm going to receive inside the output just the numbers 1, 3 and 5. So you can see that now the block of code doesn't execute the whole loop from I to 10, 2 by 2. So from 1 to 10, 2 by 2, is not going to write all the values of I, only those that are less than 7. And as well, we can make use of the if-else statement. So we can write an else statement where if I is not less than 7, then the system, let's say, to print a message, yeah, let's say it prints a message stop. So let's run the code now and see what happens. So as you can see, it's printed the first loop. It goes from 1 up until 7, so 3 times is 1, 3 and 5, and then for the last remaining 2 values, so 7 and 9, because we put the condition here less than 7, it's not going to print the I, instead it's going to print the message stop for both of the values. So for 7 he printed stop, and for 9 he printed stop again. Okay, now let's do this exercise a bit more complex, and let's make use of the scanner class that we've learned about it in the previous videos. So what I will do, I will use the scanner class, import the scanner class here, and ask the user to enter a number, an integer number. Don't forget to declare the integer number, the type of the variable, and I'm going to use the for loop to run through the number inserted by the user. So I'm going to replace here the test with the num, so the many times as the user asked for. So I'm going to use the num here instead of a specific value, and to go through this num and to print 1 by 1, right? So from the value of 1 to the value inserted by the user, to go 1 by 1, and if the value is less than 7, let's put a message where we say the number is, and we put the value. And in the else statement, so if it's not less than 7, if it's greater than 7, we're gonna put another message. Let's say number is out of range. Now let's run the program to see what happens. Right, let's first do something else. Let's write a message here to ask to enter a value, and let's see, let's run again now to be a bit more complex and a bit more tidy. So enter a value. So let's say I'm going to enter the value of 10, and we get the output of the number is from 1 to 6 is going to display the numbers, because the condition here is less than 7. So up until 6 is not equal to 7, is less than 7. So up until 6 is going to display this message, and from 7 up to 10, my value is going to display the else statement. So as you can see here, the use of scanner class, where we can ask the user to enter values for a specific length of the test, so how many times to test it. So if I run the program again and I'm entering a value of 5, then I will just get on the display printed the message 5 times, because the condition here is I is less than 7. Then the else statement is not going to be executed because I inserted 5. Now, as in if statements, if else statements, the same way in the for loops, we can use nested loops. So we can use another for loop inside a for loop. And let's go back to our exercise here, where we had those 4 stars to be displayed. So we run the code and we see we have here the output 4 lines of code where it printed the stars. But what if we want this code to be executed with only 1 star, so 1 star to be printed at a time in 4 rows with 4 columns. So in this case we can make use of one for loop, for example, to do that, and we can print this 4 times, right? So if we print this 4 times, we need to use the print statement, not the print line. So we can print 1 star at a time with the print statement, so the cursor stay one next to another. But at the end, if we want the cursor moved to the next line, so we have now 4 stars here. Okay, let's do it 1 time to see an example. So if I run this 1 time, you'll have the 4 star printed on the display. If I want to be displayed on the 4 lines, I'm going to change the test to 4. But in order to get them displayed in different lines, because if I run it now, it's going to be all together. You can see here in the output, they will be one next to each other. We need to put an empty print line. So we need to just put a print line, so the cursor to move to the next line. If I run this now again, you will see the result is different. So we get 4 stars on 4 rows and 4 columns. Now, what if I want to make use of the nested for loop in order so I can print this with just 1 star, one line of code? Now, what we're gonna do, we're gonna delete the 3 others, and inside our for loop we write another for loop, and we're gonna create another counter with a different name. So I'm gonna call it J, for instance, which starts from 1, but also J needs to go through the loop less or equal to 4, because I want 4 stars to be displayed on each line, and for J to add 1 more, and every time is counting. Now don't forget about the curly brackets when you do the other for loop, so also use the curly brackets. And the way it's gonna work now, it goes in the first for loop and it reads the first one, starting from the point 1, it reads the first nested loop, which is 1 star printed 4 times. Then it goes to the next line, which is an empty line. So move the cursor to the next bit of code here. It moves to the second. Reads again through the loop to the J counter, prints again 4 times this star, and move to the next cursor. So when I'm running the code, I'll get the same output. And in the same way we used the scanner object, the scanner class in the previous example, we can use it in this example. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna import the scanner class back and just change the values of the test of the I and the J here. So in this way the user choose how many rows and how many columns to be the stars displayed. So it's like a square, how many of them to be. So if I run the program now, let's put a message before, let's say enter value, and I'm run the code. Let's see if I put, for example, 10, okay, I'm gonna get on the display 10 rows and 10 columns of stars. So because now the test here changes, so the test here is the numbers of repetitions user asked for. So this is the way the scanner class can be used inside the for loops and nested for loops. This is a very easy example. Now, as usual, let's do a quick quiz here. So we need to write a program to ask the user to enter values for 3 different numbers. And by making use of the for loops and the if-else statements from previous video, the program should display a message with the greatest number, and the message should be displayed as many times as the greatest number is entered, so the value. So for example, if the greatest number of those 3 is the number 3, then display the message 3 times with that number. Or if the numbers are equal, then display a message to say numbers are equal. And the output should look like this. So in this example here, I'm not going to show you the whole code, obviously, because the whole point of this quiz is for you to do it on your own. I'm just going to run the code. I'm going to run the program asking to enter a value for the first number. So I'm going to give it a value of 2. Then for the second number, a value of 3. And for the third number, a value of 1. And when I hit enter, the greatest number, the message is displayed 3 times because the value is 3. And also the greatest number is 3 here. So in this case, there is a greatest number, but if I run the code again and I enter the same value, I'm gonna get the message, the numbers are equal, displayed the same times of that value. So this is how you should look your code as well. Now I'll just give you a quick hint. I've just took the previous code from the previous video and I've used it in this video. I've just adjusted with a for loop in order so I can do this. So you can do the same and see if your program runs correctly. And we have reached to the end of our today tutorial about for loops. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to subscribe and give a thumbs up. Click the bell button to receive more notifications when posting new videos, and share this tutorial with your friends so they can learn as well. Until we see the next time, I wish you all the best and stay safe.